Shalom Ufracha. What is the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter the promised land, the land of Canaan, the land of Israel? In Parashas Chukas, this week's parasha, we find a very specific reason. Because of the sin of Mei Meriva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu instructs Moshe to speak with the rock. Instead of doing so, Moshe Rabbeinu smites the rock. And because of this mistake, because of this failing, which some say because he became angry, he became enraged, and therefore he smote the rock, therefore he doesn't enter the land of Israel. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, at the end of this short episode, it says, Hashem tells Moshe and Aaron, Yan lo hemantem bi, you didn't have faith in me sufficiently, la'akdisheni, to sanctify me, le'enei bnei Yisrael, before the entire nation, lachen, therefore, lo taviu es hakal hazeh el haaretz asher nasati lahem, you shall not bring this congregation, this assembly, to the promised land. That's what we find over here. However, when we look in Devarim, beginning of Sefer Devarim, there when Moshe Rabbeinu recounts the happenings, the history of the Jewish people, he says, well, in the Chet HaMeraglim, in the sin of the spies, that was a terrible sin. And he quotes the Jewish people, saying that we have to go back to Mitzrayim. Hashem took us out from Mitzrayim to kill us in the wilderness, out of spite, out of hatred. It was a terrible, unspeakable sin on behalf of the people. And then, says Moshe Rabbeinu, V'gam bi, also with me, his anaf Hashem biglalchem. Hashem was angry because of you. Even with me, Hashem was angry. Leimar, to say, Gam ata lo tavei shama, lo tavei sham, even you will not enter the land. Rather, Yehoshua ben Nun, ha'omed lefanecha, Yehoshua, who will take your place, hu yavei shama, osei chazek, strengthen him, ki hu yanchileno es Yisrael. So we find a blatant contradiction. On the one hand, in Chukas, the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter the land is because he smote the rock rather than spoke to it. Didn't have sufficient faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that was the reason why he didn't enter the land, doesn't enter the land. In Devarim, it's because of Chet HaMeraglim. It's because of the sin of the spies. How do we resolve this contradiction? Says the Ramban on this parasha in Devarim. He says, well, it says Biglalchem, because of you, but it doesn't mean because of the Chet of the spies, but rather it's because of you that got me angry and upset in the passage of Mei Meriva. But ask other commentaries such as the Orach Chaim HaKadosh and others, this doesn't seem to emerge from the text. The text is very clear that the entire passage here, even after this terrible news that Moshe Rabbeinu is given that he won't enter together with the people, even after that we continue to speak about the sin of the spies, the Chet HaMeraglim, indicating that it's not referencing something that happened before in Chukas with Moshe Rabbeinu becoming upset, but rather the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter is because of Chet HaMeraglim. So how do we resolve this contradiction? I think perhaps the answer to this is that, indeed, the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter is because he is the leader. He's the leader of a nation that fails. The nation fails with the sin of the spies. Instead of trusting Hashem to bring them into the promised land, they fail the trial of trust. And they say, Kadosh Baruch Hu took us out of spite to kill us in the wilderness, and therefore we should go back to Mitzrayim. They fail in the test of trust in Hashem. And Moshe Rabbeinu, as the leader, is also complicit, somehow, in the sin of the people. The leader and the people are inseparable. If the people fail, that's a failure ultimately in the leadership. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter the land. He dies in the wilderness together with his nation, together with the generation that perishes in the desert and doesn't enter the promised land. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't go in. However, that's not enough. There needs to be also something personal. The Midas HaMishpat, the attribute of divine judgment, cannot rely solely on the fact that he's the leader of the people who failed. There must also be some personal flaw, something related, but something personal with Moshe Rabbeinu. And that something personal is found in our parasha, in Parashas Chukas. By the way, the same words. Just like the nation with the sin of the spies, it's in this matter, you don't trust Hashem, you don't believe in Hashem. Also here, it says, you didn't believe, there wasn't enough trust. Meaning, Moshe Rabbeinu's sin on a personal level was related, was connected, was somehow involved in the national sin of the lack of trust in Hashem. Of course, on a level that we cannot fathom, the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. But this seems to be what the Torah is telling us. Yes, Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter together with the nation. The nation fails and has to perish in the wilderness, and so does the leader. However, there also needs to be a personal element, a personal failing that Moshe Rabbeinu is found wanting in Mei Meriva, and then they join together. And Moshe Rabbeinu is with his people. The people fail, they are decreed to die in the wilderness, and Moshe Rabbeinu with them, among them. This teaches us a very fundamental, basic lesson about accountability, about the responsibility of leadership. Here in Israel, there's much discussion about this in recent months after the terrible calamity of October 7th, Simchas Torah, Tafshin Pei Daled, when we had a terrible failing of many within the people, of many among different positions and so on. Does the leadership, even though it didn't have a direct connection with those events, does the leadership need to find itself accountable, responsible? Do we say that a failing of the people is reflected implicitly in a failing of the leadership, or do we not? So we learn something from the Torah in this matter. On the one hand, yes, when the nation fails, that failing is attributed to the leadership too. The leadership shares in the responsibility, the accountability. It's complicit in the failing of the people. However, there needs also to be something personal. There needs also to be some flaw, some failing, something wanting in the leader himself, related in some way to the failing of the people, in order to find the leadership accountable. And this is true on a national level, but it's true on every level. In a family, in a community, in a town, in a city, in a group, in some public office. Yes, failings cannot be brushed away. Oh, it was a problem of some functionary, it was somebody messed up. No. If there's something that goes wrong on the level of the people, that reflects on the leadership. At the same time, there also needs to be something private, something personal that we find wanting in the leadership, and together Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't enter the land. Halavai, wish that we will be able to mend all of the different flaws. And of course, there are flaws and failings, but there's also greatness. There's also tremendous courage. There's also tremendous koiches, tremendous strengths and energies. And we should find the strength and the courage to mend that which requires mending, to fix that which requires fixing. We should know b'sorot tovot, the good tidings that we so await. And for now we should have Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbos of peace and tranquility and well-being.